All right, so imagine being stuck in the job that's burning you out, craving better pay, wanting more freedom, and just looking for some new direction. And then stumbling across a YouTube video that changes everything. Well, I'm Coach Dre, and on today's episode of Paid Not Played, you're about to meet my man Kevin Mosansky, a stand-up comic and a photographer who hated the idea of sales. But somehow, he broke into tech sales, landed a remote job, and now he's making over $70,000 a year. How in the world did he pull that off with no experience and no degree? Well, let's find out. Let's get to the content.
Don't play me, pay me. Cut the tech.
What up? Welcome back to another episode of Paid Not Played. I am your host. I am your guide, Coach Dre, and I am here just to interview another one of my amazing students. This guy, man, I remember the first day he came into one of our cohorts. He was sitting there. He had his headphones in. He was on his laptop. He had his pen. He was ready to get busy. And the moment I said, oh yeah, he's asking good questions. He got it. And so I got a call about 2 weeks ago. Coach Dre, I got the job. So I said instantly, Kev, I got to bring you on so that you can share your story with the community, man. And so I want y'all to give a good Cut the Tech CTT family welcome to my man Kevin Mosansky. What's up, Kev? What's good, man? You good?
What's up, Coach Ray? How you doing, man? I'm good, man.
I'm not doing as good as you are, man. Apparently, man, you the star of the show today. What's going on?
Oh, wow. Didn't even put makeup on or anything. Okay.
Well, man, I wanted to kind of start off by just getting your origin story, your background story. I know a little bit about you, but there were certain parts of the story where you were like, Dre, I got to tell you about this. And I'm like, yo, don't tell me yet. So wait, I want to hear it live with everybody else. So tell me, like, what was Kevin doing before you decided to make this transition into the tech world?
So for the last 10 years prior to me starting my transition into tech, I worked for a nonprofit organization, right? We provided communities and services for senior citizens, right? So we had communities all over Southern California, basically. And so for the first 7 years, I was in accounts payable, which is what I've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years prior to that. And I just kind of fell into that. I didn't go to college for that or anything like that. I literally fell into it. So for the first 7 years, I'm just doing accounts payable. And then the upper management, who I always really got along well with, like the CEO and the director of HR and all these people. I got along with them really well. And so they were like, hey, so we know you're kind of, because I had expressed also a lot of disinterest with the role. Like after a certain amount of time, I was like, it's the same thing every day. And it's just very monotonous. And even though I am good with numbers, that's not the only thing I'm good at. I'm good at other stuff too. And so they had seen from some of, they've been to some of my stand-up shows, so which we can get into later. But so they knew I was good with talking to people and stuff like that. So they said, well, why don't we utilize some of your people skills in a role in HR? So they had actually created a role in the company for a recruiting and retention coordinator, because at the time, every kind of department at each community was doing recruiting and retention their own way. So it was kind of just a mismatch of different ideas and processes and stuff. So they said, you come in, you kind of get everyone on the same page, and you kind of develop a process and a system, and you just handle all recruiting and retention. So that'll allow you to be able to, and use some of your people skills now. So I did that for 3 years. And it was just at the time where, because like the market started to do poorly, the interest rates were going up and up and up, and they're a nonprofit. So money is kind of, very, scarce there sometimes. So unfortunately, they kind of let me know, and they gave me a good amount of notice, but unfortunately they let me know because of budget next year, we're not going to be able to keep you on staff anymore. And because it was a new generated position, I knew that going in that was a risk, but I was still willing to take it. So yeah, that's what led to me leaving the company. And it was like, and I'd been working from home since the COVID shutdown. So I'd already kind of gotten used to that environment. And I knew that whatever I went into next, I wanted to still be able to work from home. That was really big to me, because I knew that I could still be productive doing that, because I had proven it to myself that I could still be productive doing it. But just the the saving money on gas and just being able to spend more time with your family. All these things just were things I didn't want to like risk losing, especially because where I live, I'm not near or in a major metropolitan area. Like, so if I did look for a job where I'd have to go into the office, it most likely would be at least an hour commute there and, and an hour commute back, which I didn't want to do. So I started looking online for, work from home jobs. At first I was looking at what I was doing. So I was looking at recruiting jobs and retention jobs and really couldn't find anything. Then I said, okay, well, as much as I don't want to go back to where I was, let me look at account payable jobs and see if I can find anything there. And while I found a couple, the pay was really bad compared to what I was making. It was like a really big step down, and I didn't want to do that either. So I was really kind of trying to figure out, okay, well, what can I do? And so I cannot remember where or how I heard about it, but I'd heard about software development. Like that's a path you can take where 95% of the time you're working from home and flexible hours and good benefits and all that kind of stuff. And, and you just got to learn about coding and stuff. So I had started looking online for places where I could learn how to code. And I came across CourseCareers. That's how I came across CourseCareers. And then I don't know if you want me to stop there or you want me to keep going with that.
No. I guess we can get into that a little bit more. I want to come back to that.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to something else that you had said. You said that your people you worked with had saw your shows before. So what were you doing? You didn't go into detail about what that was.
So back in 2010, I started doing stand-up comedy.
Okay.
And so I was doing that for 10 years up until COVID. So once COVID shut down all the comedy clubs, that's kind of when I stopped. And I haven't gotten back into it since. But for 10 years, and during most of those 10 years, I was at that company. So the CEO had been to one of my shows with his wife and stuff. And the director of HR had been to a couple of my shows. And so a lot of people, at first it was just like my close net friends at work would go to my shows, but then they would report back to other people, hey, he was really funny. Like, you should go to his next show. And so then that kind of like got more people curious about it. So then they would come and they would see me perform and they'd be like, wow, I'm seeing another side of you. Like, even our CEO, like, I remember he was like, I had no idea that you were, like that, because I'm just very, this is back when I was in accounting. So I was just very much, in my keyboard and in my numbers. So he didn't have any idea that I had that side to me. So that's kind of what led to that.
That's what's up. That's a good fun fact. So you said that you had found CourseCareers because you wanted to do software development. Right. What made you take the tech sales side route instead?
So I don't know if anyone else is going to relate to this, but before I take any type of course or anything, I kind of like to try and go on YouTube and look for reviews. So I went on YouTube looking for reviews of CourseCareers software development, and I really didn't find her. I found like maybe one or two, but what I did see a lot of, because CourseCareers was in the search, was people doing reviews on tech sales. And so I was like, okay, why are so many people talking about tech sales? So I think I watched a few of those videos too, and I understood it on a base level. Like, I'm like, okay, so they're getting near their certificate in around this amount of time, and a lot of them are then getting jobs pretty quickly and making good money. But I still wasn't like ready to go that route because I still had a negative idea of what sales was, because I still considered sales as like that what you might picture of like a sleazy car salesman or like a telemarketer, just like, and I was like, that's not me. That's not who I want to be. So I just put it on the back burner, and I ended up taking a software development course through another place, and that had reviews on it on YouTube. And so I started doing that. And then about 6 or 8 weeks in, I was just like, okay, I'm not really feeling this, because, and it's more than that too, because I also got stuck on an issue, because a lot of it was just follow along type stuff. And I got stuck on an issue, and I was just getting no support, no help, because I was like going to them and be like, hey, I'm doing what you're saying, and I can't get past this issue. And they're like, well, just do these steps. I'm like, yeah, I did those steps. So anyway, it was just like a lot of runaround. So after a couple of weeks of that, I was like, you know what, I'm done, because also one of the things I forgot to mention, besides wanting to work from home, I did want to do, if I could, this was kind of like not a necessity for me, but it was kind of like, it would be a cherry on top if I could do something where I got it to be a little bit of my creative side.
Mm.
So with software development, I was understanding like, oh, you build like things. So yeah, you could be really creative with that. But then I didn't really realize though, but like, oh, that's something that you're not really, at least from my perspective, you're not really going to be able to get to be that creative for a while, because first you're just really learning all the technicality of it. And then, so it's almost like learning a new language. It's like, you got to be proficient in the language before you can then start to use your creativity with it. So I didn't get to any sense of that side. So
you were looking for a way to be able to be more creative.
Yep.
You said that you were hesitant because you had to believe, like most people, when you think of sales, you think of sleazy car salesman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Somebody who's shiesty, you know what I mean? Something along those lines. What was it that made you realize that this wasn't that?
So it's interesting because for years prior to that, I had already followed on YouTube. Some of the people I like to follow on YouTube to watch their videos have a major background in sales. And one of the ones in particular that I really gravitated a lot to was a gentleman named Myron Golden. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I know Myron.
Okay. So obviously he's business acumen mixed with biblical principles, which I loved. And so I had already like stopped doing that software course. And I was just like, okay, you know, God, like, what do you want me to do now? Because and rightfully so, my wife is a little upset too, because she was like, you know, I support you 100%, but I don't want you to give up on yourself. Like, I want you to look, if you say that this wasn't for you, then that's not for you, but just make sure the next thing you do is for you. And I was like, I 100% understand for sure. So that's why I was praying. I was just like praying, like, God, please, like, show me what I should be doing next. Like, give me a sign or something, you know? And I, you know, go on YouTube and see one of Myron's videos that I hadn't watched yet. And it was a really, really good video about seeking first the kingdom of God. But one of the things he mentions is he kind of mentions how he views sales, which he's like, and he kind of basically gave a brief definition of it, which was basically like, your job should be uncovering the value of this product or service so well that the person on the other end will have no choice but to put out their wallet and give you money for it. Right. And so that resonated with me. It's like, yeah, okay. So it's not like pushing something on somebody. It's like, no, let me first find out what your problem is. And then if I know my solution can help you with that, let me show you as best as I can with my words and stuff, how this can help you. And then if I do my job really well and explain it to you really well, you'll be excited to take it because you know it'll help you. So when I saw that video, I was like, okay. And then literally, so after that video ended, the next suggested video was, I think, a video from you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
That's what led. So then I started going down a rabbit hole, and I think I watched, I don't know, maybe 3 to 6 videos. And I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think this was before you started the Paid Not Played series. I think this was just your journey videos.
Yeah.
So I was watching some of your journey videos, and I was really, really relating a lot with those, and the stuff that you were talking about in terms of like all the things that those jobs offer, which again were a lot of the things I wanted anyway. So I said, okay, let me go on the website and see if there's a course going. Because at the time, by the way, so I should just kind of explain this a little bit better. So I was not working at this time. I was receiving unemployment, which was running, you know, it was running low. And so it actually got to the point where I had to, and this was before I took the course, but it got to the point where I said, you know, to my wife, I said, okay, well, I'm going to have to cash out my 401k. I don't want to, because, you know, there's penalties and all that stuff, but I was like, we have to in order to be able to keep paying the bills. So I cashed my 401k. And that's when I was like, okay, well, I got this money and I'm setting aside X amount for bills, but I could also use some of that for hopefully for my future to be able to get us somewhere better. And so I went on CourseCareers and looked and saw what the course was about, watched the free introductory video, and was like, okay, let me God, again, thinking, I'm like, God, if this is what you're telling me, I'm going to do it because I have faith in you. So I took the course I started the course. I signed up for the course, I should say. So I barely signed up for the course. And then I see you having a like a cohort starting like 2 days later. And so I was like, I could do this on my own, but I also don't want to risk what happened at the last one where I didn't feel like I had support when I needed it to happen again. So I was like, let me get this cohort, let me sign up, and let's see where we go from here. And so it was kind of interesting because I remember when I signed up, and then you replied back shortly after and sent me that email, and you're like, hey, make sure you try and get this portion of the course done before we meet for the first class. And I was like, I got 2 days. I got 2 days to go through the first module. So I was a little panicky and stuff like that, but I got it done. And yeah, so when I showed up, yeah, like you said, I was ready to go.
Yeah, that's dope. That's good knowing the background of that, because it really lays the foundation for why you were so locked in when we first met. So now you're in the program, right? You just signed up for the material. You also signed up for was it a 6-week or an 8-week course at that point in time?
I want
to say it was 6 weeks. Yeah, it was 6 weeks. Yep. So you signed up for the 6-week course with me. Now you're going through the material. What was the biggest aha moment you had as you were going through the CourseCareers material?
I think it was, if I remember correctly, I think it was our first class where it was like about mindset. And you were really big on mindset again, it just reconfirmed like what Myron was saying too. It just, so it reaffirmed, okay, this, and I literally said, I was like, oh, is this why you had his video suggested after his video? Because they're like similar mindsets.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah. So it made more sense to me because, again, not that I thought it would be different, but I was like, well, Myron has his own company, he's the runner of the company. And then you're someone that's doing what I'm hoping to do, but you're still saying it's the same mindset. So I was like, okay, so if this person's in the trenches where I'm trying to go, and he's saying the same thing that Myron's saying, I see a validation in that. So I was like, okay, I can. And it was a mindset that was very easy for me to buy into. Just like I said, it was about, it's not being pushy, it's not being salesy, it's like genuinely friend to friend. I want to help you. Like, let me help you. Let me hear what your problem is. And then if I can't help you, at least I'm here to listen to you, right? But if I can't help you, let me offer some valuable solutions, some valuable, whatever product, service, whatever that I really think can genuinely help you. And that like triggered me because I'm always wanting to, like, one of the things in my prayer was I want to be of service. And so I was like, okay, that's worthy of that, to be of service, to help people with their problems by whether it's a product or a service. That was something I was able to easily buy into.
That's so dope, bro. That is so dope. That's so dope. So were there any parts of the course or the material that challenged you in a good way?
That challenged me in a good way? Well, honestly, I think it was just knowing that I could do it, even though I was like, I'd never done it before, like the first time we did like a mock cold call, I was like, I've never done a cold call. I don't think I'm going to be able to do a cold call. But then, and like you said, I was a note-taking fool. So like you kind of ran through a little like demo before we did it. And I'm taking notes on what you said and when you said it and blah, blah, blah. So then when we do our breakouts, I'm in my breakout and I'm basically kind of just following the script along that you kind of wrote. And then by the end, when it was over, like they were like, that was great. Like you've done this before. And I was like, nope, this was my first time ever doing this. So
that was crazy to me. It did, like, you sounded like you've done this before.
Yeah.
Right. Nope. Because you had a very consultative approach. Right. And so you weren't, because you had that mind frame, I just genuinely want to help somebody. You asked good questions. Right. And so that's specifically is what it is that we do, which also for me, like I said, changing the mind frame. I'm not a very pushy salesperson type of person. That's not who I am. Right. That's just not how I'm built. But I love to help people, and I'm naturally inquisitive. When I start talking about having a conversation with people, I'll ask questions. That's just the way I am. And that just aligned so perfectly with what we do.
Yeah.
So when we had that, I remember that first mock call that we had. In fact, you were in the same class with Juliet, who I just posted the last video of. And I think y'all were the duo in that first one.
I think so.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't-
crazy that I think about that.
Yeah, I
in
think
that
so.
breakout room.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, I remember that. That's dope. And both of y'all did amazing because y'all were naturally just inquisitive about what the issues could be. So you go through the course careers material with us. You graduate in 6 weeks within the
Yes.
with the course. Now it's time to find a job,
Yeah.
right? What was the job search strategy like? Now you got your certificate, and it's like, let me go get to this bag.
Right.
What was that like for you?
So it started off really late and rough for a couple reasons. So literally and I think I had told you this already, but literally the 2 days after the course was over and I had taken the final, we had a lot of my wife's family coming to stay with us because this was right around Christmas time. Mm-hmm. So a lot of my wife's family was coming to stay with us. So even some of them were staying in my office in the room I'm in right now. So, which is where I was doing all my classes and my outreach. So I didn't really have access to my room for a little bit. So I was like, well, it's Christmas time anyway, and we got family over. So I'll just put it on the back burner a little bit. And then, so they left like a week after New Year. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to go after it. And then me and my wife both got really sick. So then it was like, we were both out of commission for like over a week, like close to 2 weeks. And then, so I was like, okay, well, I'm getting a late start than I wanted to, because I wanted to like already be going. So then, yeah, I started going, and we immediately started talking about it because you were really great at giving me advice, and especially the two things, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but the two things you kind of really laid out that made it very simple for me was like, look, if you're getting interviews, but you're not getting offers, then we need to work on your interview skills. Mm-hmm. If you're not even getting the interviews, it's your resume. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. So I was like, okay, so and you were like, check in with me like every week or so, see how it's going. And so, yeah, I think for the first week or two, I don't remember the exact number I applied to, but I applied to like, I think around 50 at that time, and hadn't got any bites or anything. So you're like, all right, then let's look at your resume. And we looked at that, we tweaked it a little bit. Then we like, all right, let's see how that does. And then maybe went another couple weeks, maybe another 50. Cause I think eventually I sent a little over 100 resumes out. And then I got like a couple bites, but they weren't real, like what I would call like real, like what I was looking for bites, right? They were just kind of more like, staffing companies or something like that, right? So we tweaked it again with your advice. And I think that last tweak was the one. Because then after that, which we both kind of were like, okay, I think this is now where it needs to be. We were both pretty confident at that point. So then when I started sending that resume out, then almost like immediately I got bites. And by the way, to be clear, not just sending out the resume, but also doing what an SDR does, which is calling right after. And so it's really interesting. I'm going to jump ahead a little, but I won't give too much away. But the company I'm at now, the person that's been training me, she's very much like, some people here at the company, they have like a sniper approach where they just will, message the one person that they think is the key player. She's like, I'm like of the shotgun approach. I will message a bunch of people if I think they can help me. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what our approach was. Mm-hmm. And so at the company I'm at now, I was like, that's exactly what I did for this company, because I messaged like 5 people and tried to call 5 people. The one person I didn't think was going to be the person that would actually matter was the one that ended up calling me to kind of get me in. So, or to at least get the interview process started. So, and she said, yeah, it works. Shotgun approach works.
Yeah. I remember your resume because we had to tweak it twice.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things, the reason why I went back and asked you about what you were doing before, when you had kind of mentioned comedy, is because that ended up being a really crucial part of getting the resume to be correct.
Yep.
Right. And so I remember the main thing I was saying, when I was looking at your resume, I'm like, this resume looks good, but it doesn't sound like, it doesn't set you apart. It doesn't communicate who Kevin is.
Yep.
Right. And so one of the main things we wanted to do was, and I'm saying this because a lot of people feel like I have certain skills. I have certain things that I've developed over the years. I just don't know how to put them on a resume. Like they don't translate well into the workforce. and I don't know how to put them on a resume. So we specifically sat down and was like, how do we incorporate all the things that you've done in the past and make it and shape you on your resume to be a assassin when it comes to being an SDR.
Right. Yeah.
And so when we did that, I remember looking at that resume, I was like, oh, this is the one.
Yeah.
This not only does this, it was specified for the SDR role. It showed how you had the skill set for years before CourseCareers. You had a skill set that would translate well. And if anybody read this resume for any other job description, it wouldn't fit.
Right.
We made you qualify for specifically what it was. And then after that, it was up.
Which is really important too for people to know, that because I didn't think my background before CourseCareers would translate at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just how you look at it. And so for anybody that thinks like that their background in no way, shape, or form resonates with what an SDR does, Coach Trey will find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I promise you're qualified one way or another.
Yeah.
So now you're getting interviews, right? What was the interview process like for you?
So I got the call from the gentleman that was like in the HR department, the one of the people I had emailed and called. And I missed the call because they're on East Coast time. So they called me at like 6 a.m, missed the call, but heard the voicemail and like called back right away. And then I didn't get him. So I got his voicemail. So I was like, all right, here we go. So then follow-up game, following up every day with a call here, an email here, a LinkedIn message here. And so we eventually connected, and he said, I already like the follow-up. And I was like, yeah, got that. He said, so let's set up a time to interview. So at first, the first interview was just me and him. And I think he had asked, because it was also on my LinkedIn profile about my stand-up comedy and my photography background. We kind of put that in there too. And so he was intrigued by that and was asking me about that. And so we just had a really good conversation. And I wasn't sure because prior to this interview, I had only had really one other one before that. That was like with a real company. And it was the one interview, and then it was a done. It was like, oh, we'll let you know. And then I never heard back. Well, I heard back via email. So this one, I was expecting kind of a similar thing where not that they would say no, but that I wouldn't know anything at the end of the call. But literally before the call ends, he's like, so what I'd like to do is set up another interview with you with so-and-so, our sales director. And I was like, oh, okay, I made it to a second interview. That's good. And so we set that up and then had that interview with just me and, it's the three of us now. And, he was asking me some tough questions, but I was confident that I knew what to say. I was confident that I knew what he was looking for. And even he, I think it was so funny because there was a moment in that interview where he goes, all right, so I want to ask you a ranking question here. And I was like, okay. And he's like, your favorite 3 comedians. And I was like, and I literally paused and I go, I was prepared for every question, but this one. So I literally kind of froze on that for a little bit, which they had a good chuckle about. And then, but I answered and stuff. But so that interview went really well. And then they said they had kind of thought, okay, so yeah, we'll let you know. So I was thinking that was going to be the last one, either got it or didn't. And I think they said, we'll let you know by the end of the week. And so, because I think this was on a Tuesday. And so on Wednesday or Thursday, the gentleman hits me back up and goes, hey, so we were talking, and what we'd like you to do is we'd like you to send us an email as if you already work for us and you're prospecting to a company, right? And so I said, okay, so it could be, and he's like, it can be any company that you're prospecting to, but just as if you're us and blah, blah, blah. So I kind of hit you up right away. I was like, hey, they want me to send them an email. And then you're like, well, you know what to do, like kind of thing. We talked about it a little bit. If I remember correctly, I sent you the email. Yep, and I was like, what do you think? And you were like, send it. That's good. So sent that email and then heard back on Friday again saying, okay, is this going to be them saying I got it or didn't? And they're like, we got your email. We'd like to set up a third interview with you. And I was like, oh man. So I was just like, I kept feeling like I was about to either just like put me out of my misery or tell me I got it. But it was like, it was dragging it out. And so the third interview was still the two of them. Then now also the person that was going to be the person that ends up training me, the like kind of the senior person in that department. So she jumps on, and she's, so now it's 3 against 1, and some of the questions are questions I've already answered, but I'm obviously just answering again, and some of them were new questions that threw me for a loop. And I found out that they were really one of the things that really intrigued them about me, which is, again, it's like you never know, was the fact that my stand-up was, well, you write your material and then you perform your material, but at the same time, if something happens where you get a heckle or someone passes out or the lights go out or the mic goes out, you know how to adjust and go with the flow. And that was what they were looking for, because little did I know at the time that they were actually more interested in their outreach being email versus a lot of cold calls. So I was like, oh, well, yeah, because at one of the point they did ask me, like, are you more comfortable on the phone or email? And I was like, honestly, both. And they're like, well, okay, but you obviously write a lot. And I said, well, and then they asked me about the stand-up. I said, yeah, all that stand-up is written out. I don't, I mean, occasionally I'll come up with something on the spot, but most of the time I do write it out first before I say it. And they're like, okay, that's intriguing. That's interesting. So that's kind of what led to them, I think, ultimately offering me the job, which was that they knew my writing skills, and they were really happy with the email I wrote to them too. So yeah, so that's how that worked out.
Dope. So you killed 3 interviews.
Yep.
I remember you calling me after the third one, and you were like, I'm pretty sure I got that job.
Yeah.
He was pretty confident.
I felt,
and then they hit you back up and made you the job offer.
Mm-hmm.
You were through the moon. I remember that phone call.
Oh yeah.
What was that feeling like when you got that call?
It was it was a lot of mixed emotions, because I'll be 100% honest with you, and I'm a very like emotional person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So that call's ending, I'm immediately crying and praying to God, thanking God and crying at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then I immediately went from that feeling to, like, not angry, but I was annoyed because my wife was not home, and she was visiting her dad. And so I wanted to make sure she was the first person I told, but I didn't want to tell her over the phone or text. I wanted to tell her in person. But then I'm like, hey, baby, like, when you coming home? And then she's like, oh, running late, got to do this and that. And then I'm like, okay, well. And so eventually she got to the point where she's like, oh, I'm going to go pick up, because her mom lives like 5 minutes from her. She's like, I'm going to go pick up mom on the way home, and we're both going to come over, and we're going to, like, cook dinner or whatever. I'm like, all right, I really wanted to tell you this in private, but since now seems like my only chance, I want to tell you. And so I said, I got the job, and she was over the moon too. And so got to tell her over the phone, and obviously, asking me all the questions, and I'm telling her everything. And, but then when she got home, so I skipped something. So there's a book called, what's it called? Circle Maker. And it's a book about basically, like, your prayers, and then you kind of like, and how to kind of have your prayers answered in a certain way, right? So one of the things in the book that my mom had actually suggested, because she's a big churchgoer too, is she's like, write a letter. This was before I started interviewing. She's like, write a letter to God, thanking God for the job you got, and then in the letter, like, say the things you're thankful about the job, like basically what your ideal job is going to be. Write it out, but thanking him for it as if you already got it. So I had that letter written and folded up and on the fridge. And so it had been there for like 2 months. And then so when her and her mom came in, I had it off the fridge, and I said, hey, mom, like, did you notice? And I'm very close with her mom. Did you notice anything about the fridge? I did something different. Can you tell? And she's looking, she's like, oh, you moved the magnets? I said, no, something else. And then she goes, I don't. And then so she's looking, and I'm holding up and she turns around and she's like, hugged me and started crying. So it wasn't what I was picturing, because I wanted that to be my wife, but it was still a nice way to share it with the both of them, and my second mom and my wife. So I was just thanking God so much for the blessing of the job, and it it answering. I mean, everything I wrote in that letter about what I was praying to God that job would be has, as far as from what I've known so far, has all come to fruition.
Dope.
Yeah.
So what was the offer? We got to talk money. We got a motto here. Don't pay me, play me. Like, you know what I'm saying?
So
Don't
yeah,
play me, pay me. You understand? What's up? What's the money?
Yeah, the base pay is just above 50.
Okay.
And the OTE is just below 70. But they were very clear with me on that, as far as, and it's uncapped for sure. They were very clear with me where they're like, we kind of set this low because since you've never done this before, we don't know, like, we're putting numbers we think are really going to be easy for you to hit. Okay. So they're like, the chances of you exceeding this are likely if you put in the work. And I was like, oh, I'm going to put in the work for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So basically 70,000.
Basically,
right around him. Okay. Dope. And how long did it take you from the time you signed up for CourseCareers to the time you landed your job?
Well, there was that big delay. So because I started in mid-November, the course started mid-November because it was like right before Thanksgiving, and I got the job right near the end of March. December,
January, February, March. 4 months.
About 4 months. But I really would take away one of those months because, like I said, between the family being in town and then me being sick, there was like about a month where I really wasn't looking.
So in 3 months,
you
went from unemployed, no tech sales skills, nothing, to a $70,000 a year work from home job, entry level position.
Yep.
In the middle of an economy where everybody is saying tech is not the place to get into.
Yep. 100%. And the beautiful part about and the beautiful part about it is one of the things that they were looking at me for, which was, again, one of the things I had said in the beginning that I wanted to get to use my creativity, is they said, we really want to use you to not only, do what an SDR does, but we want you to help create us some new cadences, some new, and A/B test them, like play with it. And then it's so funny because like just yesterday or the day before, because I've been at the job now for 2 weeks, there was a reply that came in. And so I kind of asked them like, hey, they're like, yeah, just send us what you plan on saying to them so we can just make sure it's good and whatever. So I sent them a draft of what I was going to reply with. And then right after I'd sent it to them, I said, okay, but this doesn't have, again, going back to like we were talking about the resume, it's like, this doesn't have my personality in it though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I rewrote it slightly and added a little bit more of my personality, my humor in it, basically. And then when I sent them that, I said, hey, just so you know, this is a second draft. This just has more of my humor in this, whatever. And I said, but I don't know if that's frowned upon by you guys. I don't know if you want me to keep it 100% professional, but, just to give you, and the response back was like, no, we want you to be yourself. That's why we hired you. So, and we do not frown upon humor in our emails or anything. So go with the second one. So I was like, wow, okay. Get to use my creativity. Like, awesome.
That's so dope, bro. That's so dope. That's so dope, man. God is good.
Yep, he's good all the time.
Dope. So I guess I got one last question for you, and we'll let you get out of here. So if you could go back, I'm going to ask you to give advice to anybody who's sitting in your shoes when you started. So the way I asked the question is, if you could go back to November of last year before you signed up, and you now could talk to that version of you, what would be the advice you give them?
Oh man, there's so much I would say. First of all, don't hesitate. Just start now, because like tomorrow is always gonna come. Like, just start today. Start now. And the big thing for me, which is kind of one of the things I felt like, well, because like a lot of people, they finish the course, and you had even talked about this. Like, you finish the course and then you're hesitant to take the final because you feel like I want to relook at everything. I want to be perfect, blah, blah, blah. And so, because I think there's even people from our cohort who still haven't taken the final, and it's just, my thing was like, the more time I take to try and perfect this, the longer it's going to be like not fresh in my brain. So I think I took it like maybe 2 days after we finished. Mm-hmm. So that's one advice I would give to anybody that does decide to take it, is like, as soon as you finish the course, as long as you feel like you have a good grasp on it, take the exam. Yeah. But also just like, don't be afraid to fail. Like, just go for it, because ultimately failing doesn't really exist. It's just like a learning experience, right? So like with me, because I literally got to a point, and I joked about it with my friends. Like I literally got to a point where, as that first 100 resumes was going out and I wasn't really getting any traction, I was like, do I need to start checking off that I'm a veteran and that I have a disability or something? Because I'm like, what do I got to do to get someone to at least give me a call back, Because I was just like, dude, what's going on? And so, but it just got to the point where I was like, no, it's just, you just remain you, but like you were saying, like, but show them who the real you are, like show them. And so as soon as I started doing that, the doors opened quickly. Yeah.
That's so dope, man. That's so dope. Well, man, look, I'm not going to hold you too much longer. I appreciate you for your time, for sharing your story with the community. We got to get out of here, but we have one last bit of business we have to do. And you know what it is. We do it every time we break the huddle. You know what I mean? So since you earned the right to be here, be interviewed, I want you to be the one to take us out with the family model today. All
right. You want me to count it down or just go?
You count it down, man. Do your thing.
3, 2,
use your
1,
creativity.
Go. That's good. Guys, if you guys are going to take Coach Dre, just remember one thing. Don't play me, pay me, cut the tech.
You heard?
Don't play me, pay me, cut the tech.
Thank you for checking out the Cut the Tech channel. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat. I personally try to reply to each and every one of them. Now, if you want more information on how you can make a career pivot in 3 easy steps, please check us out at cutthetechworldwide.com. Get more information there. Lastly, check out this video right here that YouTube thinks that you would enjoy. And until the next time that we meet, remember to Cut the Tech motto. Don't play me, pay me. Cut the tech. You heard?